Okay, let's start with a number, 2.3 million. That is the staggeringly huge number of massive stone blocks, and we're talking blocks weighing up to 15 tons each that were moved entirely by human hands to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. Just, let the sheer weight of that sink in for a second. Long before we had massive modern cranes or even a fully recorded history, these ancient people managed to manifest a structure so vast and honestly so unbelievably precise that it still completely defies a simple explanation today.
So, welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to put on our historical investigator hats for this one. We're looking far past the actual physical stones sitting out there in the desert, and instead we're going to decode the incredibly complex, highly organized civilization that actually stacked them. We are literally peeling back 4,500 years of sand to uncover a story about absolute power, wild ambition, and some incredibly deep societal structures. Because here's the thing. Instead of getting totally bogged down in those endless debates over exactly how it was built, we're going to look really closely at who actually built it, and maybe more importantly, why. Answering those questions sets the stage for some major historical myth-busting, because by understanding the society, the insane logistics, and the actual people down in the dirt, we get so much closer to understanding the monument itself.
Let's dive into Part 1, the spiritual engine and the God King's eternal vision.
So, travel back with me to around 2600 BC. Ancient Egypt is absolutely thriving along the predictable annual floods of the Nile River. And this very cyclical, predictable environment fostered a deeply spiritual worldview. Now, to understand the pyramid, you really have to understand the man who ordered it to be built, Pharaoh Khufu. You see, he wasn't just a king sitting on a throne making laws. He was viewed as a completely divine figure, literally a god among men. His main job? Maintaining cosmic order. And that meant guaranteeing a successful journey into the afterlife, not just for himself, but effectively to ensure the continuity of his entire world.
And honestly, that explains why this whole project was just so unprecedented. Khufu demanded a monument that would completely guarantee this eternal journey. The Egyptian obsession with eternity meant this couldn't just be some ordinary burial chamber. It was a colossal statement, engineered with such crazy precision that its base is almost perfectly level. Think about this. We struggled to get our modern foundations that flat using precision laser technology, and they managed to pull it off with water trenches and string. It was a tomb built to literally outlast time itself.
Moving right along to Part 2, organizing a monumental empire through the state apparatus. Having a grand vision is one thing, right? But actually executing it requires a level of administration that is just off the charts. You simply cannot pull millions of tons of resources without three major societal pillars. You need a fiercely centralized government to manage the staggering logistics. You need a booming agricultural economy along the Nile to essentially fund the whole endeavor. And you need that deep spiritual devotion we talked about to motivate an entire society to pull together in one direction.
This central state apparatus basically orchestrated an incredible logistical network. It's best to think of it like an ancient, hyper-efficient supply chain. First up, workers quarried granite from Aswan, which is hundreds of kilometers away, and limestone from Tura, all using simple copper tools and stone hammers. Then, to transport these massive stones, they brilliantly used the Nile's predictable flood seasons, digging out these temporary canals to bring materials directly to the construction site. And finally, to move them overland without wheels, well, evidence shows workers likely poured water onto the sand right in front of their sledges. This dramatically reduced the friction so those massive blocks could just glide across the desert. Pure genius. 146 meters. That was the final staggering height of this structure. Because getting the stones to the site was only half the battle. Lifting blocks that weigh up to 15 tons to a height of 146 meters without modern cranes, that is the ultimate puzzle of the ancient world. It's led to countless theories over the years. Straight ramps, spiral ramps wrapping around the outside, ramps hidden internally, and yes, even those crazy internet theories about ancient aliens. But the real answer, as is almost always the case, boils down to brilliant human ingenuity.
Which brings us to Part 3, the hands that built it and the life of the skilled laborers.
Okay, let's look past the pharaohs and the administrators for a second and focus on the actual people down in the dirt, because we really need to bust a long-held myth right here. For centuries, pop culture has pushed this idea that the pyramids were built by the cracking of whips over enslaved masses. But modern historical evidence? It paints a completely different, much more fascinating reality.
So because the Nile flooded annually, farming basically had to pause for an entire season. The state drafted these temporarily idle farmers, but they treated them as highly valued, skilled laborers, not slaves. And their daily life was surprisingly pretty good. They lived in these dedicated, rigorously organized grid towns right near the site. We actually have archaeological evidence proving they were fed premium rations. We're talking prime beef, sheep, lots of bread, and daily rations of beer. They even had access to advanced medical care. We found skeletons with successfully set broken bones and amputated crushed limbs. They were fully supported and sustained by the state they were serving.
As someone who loves history, this is absolutely my favorite detail. We have actually found ancient graffiti left behind by the workers themselves. They gave their crews these amazing names, like the Friends of Khufu, or, my personal favorite, the Drunks of Menkaure. It just proves that these organized teams had immense pride, a fierce team identity, and a surprisingly relatable sense of humor about their monumental task. They weren't toiling in misery. They were actively participating in the greatest national project in human history, and they wanted their team names carved right into it for everyone to see.
And finally, let's look at part 4, a legacy set in stone.
So what actually happens when an empire pours so much of its soul, its physical labor, and its entire economy into one singular monument? Well, you simply can't sustain that level of output forever. After Khufu, pyramid building did continue in Egypt, but it never again reached this staggering scale. Those massive centralized resources eventually started to dwindle. Over generations, political power shifted away from the singular absolute focus, and slowly but surely, the golden age of monumental pyramid building just kind of faded into the background of Egyptian history.
Yet here we are 4,500 years later, and the Great Pyramid still stands silent and unmoving. It's literally a giant puzzle carved into the earth. With its proportions perfectly matching mathematical constants, those mysterious internal kings and queens chambers, the star-pointing shafts, and even modern scans revealing hidden, unexplained voids inside, it continues to be this awe-inspiring testament to a civilization that absolutely refused to be forgotten.
Today, we're using 3D reconstruction, thermal imaging, and muon scanning to find entirely new questions hidden inside Khufu's masterpiece. But the pyramid is so much more than just stacked stone. It's almost like a mirror reflecting our own impermanence. As we marvel at what they achieved without a single piece of modern machinery, it leaves us with one final, fascinating question to ponder. When the dust finally settles on our era, what modern mysteries and monuments will our own civilization leave behind to endure for the next 4,500 years?